But right now we're talking about AI in investing. And for that, I'd like to invite Mr. Rohan Borawake. Please welcome him on the stage with a huge round of applause. Mr. Rohan is a co-founder and CEO of FinSharpe, a SEBI-registered investment advisory focused on bringing transparency and consistency to investment advice in India. Frustrated by commission-driven recommendations and psychological biases that often cloud investor judgment, Rohan's mission is simple: provide conflict-free, quantitative investment advice tailored to individual risk profiles and financial goals.
Yes, hello everyone. Yes, even though we're in Bombay, it feels like I was feeling like I was in Switzerland or something. The AC was too strong, so thanks, Anil sir, for that. And yeah, interesting times and interesting space that we're in currently. So Chintan sir was my boss's boss at OSTC where I was, trading. So it's indeed very, very overwhelming, and I really thank him, for inviting me to give this talk. Now, there's a lot to unpack with what's happening in the AI space, but we'll try to keep it a bit more generic. I want to touch some core concepts and then also dive into some technicals for those who are interested. But yeah, so why this topic is important, why we are here, I want to sort of start with a personal story. Roughly 1 year ago, I was sitting very late night in my office and trying to brainstorm essentially what's the next idea for FinSharpe. What are we going to innovate? We were already doing some thing along algorithms and so on and so forth, and creating some strategies. But I was sitting late night in my office, and China had dropped their DeepSeek R1 model, and the difference, we were doing a bit of AI at that point as well, but the difference was that there was some thinking embedded into these models, and that was fascinating to me. So I sat all night, and at that point you had a limit on how much you could use the model as well. And I tried all our flows of whatever we were doing in terms of risk management, portfolio creation, allocation, and so on and so forth. And after having a run at it, of course I couldn't sleep at night. And eventually I said, okay, I want the mornings to start. So once the morning started, I went to my parents, and my parents had the real estate business. I told my father, you know what, I should start looking into the family business now, this is too overwhelming. I think pretty much anything you can put on the paper, AI is able to do it. I don't really understand what's left for us to do, okay? And that's why, I think necessity is the sort of mother of creation. And that's what sparked FinSharpe to do what we're doing today in terms of the Agentic AI space. So, that was my system one reaction to what was happening with AI. So Daniel Kahneman, the father of behavioral finance, says that there are two types of systems that we're thinking. System one is more spontaneous. You give a more sort of reactive thinking, and system two is when you go back, think, and sort of digest these facts and information to come up with the response. Okay, and where we are seeing the world in terms of AI, it's more system one driven. It's like a very sophisticated form of autocomplete. It's not there yet. The models are not there yet. So a quick show of hands, how many of you think that AI will not replace your job in the next 5 years? Show of hands. So, okay, there's very few people who think that AI will not replace your job. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. Lovely, lovely. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll have a look at some of the reasons why AI might actually not take your job, and what's the technicals behind it. Okay. Just want to talk a little bit more about intelligence, just by definition of it. So the ability to understand, learn, and think. Okay. Now, fortunately, as humans, we have these animal instincts, and we have a little bit of an upper hand in terms of all systems as they stand today. And but at the same time, what are the AI models doing in that sort of context? So that's what I want to sort of touch upon also. So in 1950, a British mathematician named Alan Turing came up with a test called the Turing test. Okay, a pass in that test indicates that you cannot recognize a human from a machine. Okay, so if a machine passes that test, that is what it indicates. But in today's world, you can pretty much tell, right? If you see a blog or if you see something, if you see a video, you can pretty much have a feeling that it is probably AI generated, right? The models are not there yet. There are some spaces, some areas where, let's say, we can say that the models are passing the Turing test, but in many other areas, it's just not so. Now, there was an interesting research done by Google's Deep Mind team, the AI team. They created an algorithm which was designed to mimic and sort of, understand how game theory works and play the game of Go. Okay? So in this context, what it was able to do is that the algorithm was able to study the game, study different patterns, study successful outputs and players, and it was able to sort of beat humans at the game of Go. Now, this was an interesting development a couple of years ago, but not as interesting as the models are today. Okay, so in today's age, what's happened is that Google updated their models, and they came up with another model called as Mu0, which the reason I was awake that night was because the models are using reinforcement learning. Is sort of a different type of technique in terms of understanding models. In that model, this alpha, the Mu0, was shown like the game of Go and not told the rules of the game. So it did not know what it was playing. It studied the model, and using reinforcement learning, it was able to understand the rules of the game and beat the world's leading players at that. So the models are somewhere getting there in some areas where it is closed, and we're seeing some sort of encouragement on that aspect, but not everywhere. So we'll come to certain things. So in any sort of learning, right, as AI models stand today, where AI models stand today, it can be compared to a child. While children, you can't give sort of a nuclear reactor button to a child's hand and say that, okay, fire it when we say so. So it's not there yet. But children are very interesting. They actually, the learning curve is very fast. So typically speaking, these are the three types of learning where the models are trained on, something like a supervised learning, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. And the night I was awake, reinforcement learning was what keeping me awake. So in terms of technology, what exactly works in the back end is that in supervised learning, it is similar to a parent instructing a child to put certain toys in labeled boxes. Okay? Now this is a fairly easy thing to do. It is just a sophisticated form of automation, and that's where many models are doing quite well, and you could say replacing unscalable work. The second type is unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, the boxes are there, the toys are scattered, and the child is sorting the toys into patterns or clusters, where, let's say, toys with wheels on it are put in a box by the child, or action figures, and so on and so forth. And in reinforcement learning, for every successful sorting, the parent is giving the child a chocolate. Okay, so there is a reward linked to this. And now the child is motivated to get the right reward. And for every unsuccessful output, there is no chocolate involved. Now, when Google DeepMind researchers were doing this and several experiments were run, what they noticed was that after the child has sorted all the toys, it was creating the mess and then again putting it back to gain more chocolates. Okay, so that's where they're sort of trying to rig the game, and where the world stands today. Even AI models are doing that. AI models are optimizing for, let's say, a token or speed or so on and so forth, and that is why we are seeing many issues with AI, and essentially some issues like prompt injection. There is one aspect of reinforcement learning that the AI models are not able to do is called temporal abstraction. Now, in this case, when you're giving a reward, and let's say the child keeps cheating, that let's say is creating a mess and then sorting it, this is not going to fare well for the child's learning in a very long term. Okay, and that's what AI systems are lacking. Temporal abstraction is the inability of these models to understand long-term consequences of these certain issues and biases that are there while finding these patterns. And in today's world, what's the issue with AI? The hype. it can be summarized in a single word. It's called hallucinations. And hallucinations are there. I think many of us who are using ChatGPT and so on and so forth, we can see it to some extent. We can understand that, okay, doesn't look right or this looks right. And we'll see some reasons and examples in terms of finance, which is our topic today. So this quote very much summarizes hallucinations, is that it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so, right? And that's where the problems arise. Now, the night I was awake, essentially I was trying to prompt these model very complex financial flows and giving it a bunch of tricky questions, okay? Now, in portfolio management, whenever as an advisor, as a fund manager, you're creating any strategy, largely you would follow 3 steps, okay? One is like a ranking process to select stocks. The second is the weight allocation, how much money to put where. And the third is, let's say, risk management, that along the way, what can you do to better the portfolio, or what actions can you take, okay? So what I did was, this is the Cloud 3.7 model. Now you have the Opus. But essentially what I was trying to do is that I instructed AI to create an investment portfolio using, let's say, a momentum-driven philosophy, and a lot of things in that aspect. But if you see the output, it says that I claim to use this, but I actually didn't use AI. And this is because the models are moving towards general intelligence. Your data, your proprietary data, is something that the models don't have, and that's what we need to look at. Again, I think we're short on time, so I'm going to run through things. But yeah, so that brings me to what's real then, okay? When you combine raw factual data, when you take your human-designed rules and systems, and ultimately apply artificial intelligence on top of it as an orchestration layer, those models are working better in that aspect. Now, in this example that I took, I said that, create a momentum-based portfolio with 25 stocks on the Nifty 500 and backtest it. In our system, or in the focused agentic AI system, it would go to the supervisor. The supervisor plans these tasks and invokes certain autonomous agent which are focused to do just that task. For in this case, the market analysis agent will just analyze the market. Stocks will just talk about stocks, nothing else. And by this way, these tools are something that we have written as a Python code, which pull data from structured, unstructured, and analytics data. And ultimately, another AI model verifies this output. Now, this entire loop, when you put a query and run the process through this entire loop, you reduce the chance of any hallucination. Okay? So in FinSharpe GPT, so what's next? So we're trying to solve core investor problems like unable to track investments, factual analysis of portfolio, and so on and so forth. And what we are actually done is that we have built an AI model, and it's in beta, so you can go to our finsharpe.com website, click on invest, and you'll have it there. I wanted to show a live demo, but in case we're short on time, we can do it in the break. And what we are trying to use is that we are leveraging the power of accounts aggregator framework. We have built many modules in terms of deep agents and autonomous agents, so that the AI agents will work when you're asleep. So it will notify you about any events or anything that will affect your portfolio according to your criteria as well. And that's pretty much what we are doing, and how we are trying to minimize hallucinations, minimize any sort of drawbacks of AI using focused agents, using raw factual data, your intelligence proprietary data, and ultimately the Agentic AI framework. Now, beginning of this session, I asked a question, right? How many of you think that would AI replace your job or not? I think we should completely replace that question itself with something like, how do you plan to use AI to grow your wealth? Thank you. Okay, so yes, I think we can do the live demo. What I wanted to show was the complex query that I ran, right, in Claude 3.7 Sonnet. Now, in this case, how does an agentic AI system actually look? So this is live. right? So essentially, and this example can be extrapolated in any other practice as well. That if you have proprietary rule-driven systems that you follow in your own practice, these need to be given to the AI system. And as you see, the query that I gave on any other AI model, it was an instant reaction, and it gave me like an instant output in the next very second. But in this case, what we're doing is that we are invoking certain tools, and now the query is broken down into steps. Let's say first we are trying to screen stocks, then we're using the HRP, then we're analyzing the portfolio. And this is the way in which rule-driven systems and AI-driven systems can come and bring the best of both worlds together and essentially give you an output. Now, in this case, we have created a unique investment portfolio based on certain stocks and their weightages, which are in momentum. We've backtested it with Nifty 500, giving you certain portfolio factor scores and so on and so forth. But without getting into a lot of complexities, what this has done essentially is that we are also using the capabilities of AI, so you can toggle between any base level model that you want to use. But the way industry is adopting to AI in the investment space is essentially by using your proprietary data sets and using these workflows that have been created by experts to ultimately now to give you a much more interactive experience. Now, what can it mean for someone like a retail investor who does not have the, let's say, the knowledge to even create the portfolio? If you reverse engineer this process, if you upload your investment portfolio and without sort of knowing much what to do about it, right? The investments are scattered around different places. Just by putting in your PAN and OTP, you can connect your investment portfolios in this space, and it will give you the analysis based on factual information that what's going right in your portfolio, what's going against you, how much money are you paying distributors, what is there any room left for optimization? That's the first step, the scanning. And ultimately, you can take the scan and go to SEBI registered advisors or seek expert help in that aspect if it is needed. If not, then I think you're well equipped to manage your own investments. What we're building is that we want to empower investors, we want to empower advisors, and give them the set of tools in your hand to truly sort of democratize investments. Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Please.
Hi, very interesting presentation. Thanks a lot for all the information. My name is Partha Engar. ChatGPT just few days ago came up with a clear announcement. They will no longer have investment advice, legal advice, and medical advice because they have found a lot of hallucinations, literally, right? So what do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think it was about time this would happen. And even if ChatGPT in fact did a good job by coming up front and doing it themselves, but governments won't allow that, right? Like for example, like China has in general banned influencers without, let's say, a financial degree or something to talk about any topic of sort. And this is a much needed initiative because what's happening is that people are not using ChatGPT just for like basic content creation and so on and so forth. You can ask about serious healthcare issues and so on and so forth. And what's the model is best at, giving you general advice. But let's say you go to the Johns Hopkins research, they will say that, our data is not on the internet. So it's not even there. You cannot Google about some sort of a disease and find out the medication. And AI models are trained on what's on the internet, right? So it's not enough to give you that advice, psychology, health, everything in all those aspects. So that was something that was about to happen. And that's why Agentics, on top of your intelligence works better than directly going to the models for specific advice. For anything general, web search related things, you can go. So yeah, I mean, that was about to happen. And I think you will see more and more adoption where anything related to consultancy, where stakes are high, definitely healthcare and investments also, that's where you will see models moving out of it. Yes.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can just ask from there. I think it's. Yeah, I can hear you. I think it's fine. Yeah.
Hello.
So the product is mostly a GPT wrapper over your data, or just like the data is means like proprietary, or we can just connect it
Oh, no,
to
no.
your
So,
models.
so it's more than a GPT wrapper. Essentially, what we're doing is that I'll get into the technicals much more maybe in the break. But what we're doing is that we're taking raw data. We have processed analytics data on top of this raw data. We're using the LangGraph orchestration framework, which uses multiple LLM models in the background. And we have created focused agents, which are essentially Python codes and tool calls. 1,000 lines of Python code. Let's say you say technical analysis. Roughly there are 150 to 200 indicators. These are coded in Python and kept already, so we are not leaving the math to the AI to do whatever math they want to do. So in this entire framework, that's what we are doing.
So suppose if my data is like just an OHLCV data with a time frame or data set, suppose I'm not mostly into investing a specific like for 1 minute tick by tick data which I have in my data source, or some of my database which is structured, or like some which is integrated. So how the thing that I will connect it with to your model, or it's just like I'm connecting my data to a MCP, and then behind the scenes the things are happening.
No, no. So you can give the model the context, and we already have OHLCV, company financials, all the data embedded already into the
No,
system.
many of the
Tick,
time,
tick by tick.
no, many of the time we have found many discrepancies in the data. The data which is provided by many of the providers, it's not that genuine or the things that we want. So mostly what all things are happening, like the free data which is available, it's not that good, because we are currently doing, we are doing with the models, but how it's mostly other than the other models, like currently if we are using like suppose Sonnet 4.5 with currently like with our data structures which we are embedding in it, how it's your product different from the models, is it we are trying to just embed our data and we are getting the output, or just like we are connecting it to your databases? And many of the problems which we are facing is like some databases have never connections with means like some of the database, like we are using ClickHouse for an example, which we won't connect. It's a SQL database, but we can't able to connect it with other things, like so we have to build. So how like that things will help?
Yeah, so I think this is a very specific question. I'll address it. We're running out of time, but to simplify, answer your question, we are giving APIs. So we are working with stockbrokers where you can connect your SQL database and you call our middleware APIs, where we have trained all these agents on different tools, and you get the output. Okay.
So the pricing is based on the token
Yeah, we will
models,
discuss
or
pricing. I would love to discuss pricing
Yeah,
and everything with you
mostly
in
because
the
of the
networking
tokens
break.
or anything,
But yeah,
because
let's do
when
that. Yeah, I think we'll take the specific questions in the break. Yeah.
for sure.
Right. All right. Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rohan sir.